Hi, Ben and or Bookish Bear here, and I'm going to do my September wrap-up. So let's talk about what I read and stuff in September. As always, going to start with what I'm currently reading. I'm currently working on Pet Semetery by Stephen King to read creepy stuff in October. So reading this, I'm not very far in, so I don't really know how I'm going to feel about it, but hopefully it's as good as everyone says it is. Also been reading through Meet Me in the Bathroom by Lizzy Goodman, which is kind of the Goodman? It's the oral history of kind of the rock scene in New York in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, it's the Strokes, DFA and LCD Soundsystem and all that stuff, Interpol, all the stuff that I was really into and kind of paved the way for me to get really into music in a nerdy way. So it's really interesting and I'm really enjoying it. And if you're into music at all, I'm 36, so that's around the time when I was in my 20s and exploring new music and stuff. So if you're similarly minded, you would probably really enjoy it. It's called Meet Me in the Bathroom. And it's really good. It's really, really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. It's kind of long, so it's taking me a bit, but totally recommend it. As far as what I finished in September, I read The Incendieries by R.O. Kwon. So this book is, the reason I read it is because I've seen it around a lot. Everyone's talking about it. It seems to be the kind of book that everyone's really into this year. And I usually don't read those kinds of books. They're really popular, really just kind of everywhere books. I still haven't read Lincoln in the Bardo, which makes me feel like a bad book nerd. But so I decided to read it. I saw it in the store and it was so short, looked so short. So I was like, okay, I could just knock it out really quick. It took me a while longer to read because I wasn't super into it. The writing style and the storytelling style of going back and forth between different narrators, even though it was, I guess, one narrator. Anyways, it doesn't matter. That's not really a thing I enjoy a lot, so that kind of turned me off on the book. There's lots of interesting stuff in the book that I really enjoyed and really made me think, and I think the exploration of the loss of faith is really cool and interesting and something that you don't see a lot in books or any kind of medium really. And as someone who was once a pretty devout Christian and is now an atheist, it's interesting to see characters deal with that and actually talk kind of realistically about how it feels, and it's not just a simple thing of like flipping a switch and you're done with that. There's grief and there's it's like any other relationship really, where you have to go through these different steps and processes and feelings and emotions. So that part of the book was really interesting to me and was cool to read and to see in literature or any kind of medium. So I wouldn't say that I love the book. I wouldn't say I hated it. I feel good about it. I'm glad that I read it, and I would recommend it to people, I suppose. But it's not one of my favorite books I've ever read for sure. I probably won't read it again. The other book I finished in September was The Lifters by Dave Eggers. So this is Dave Eggers, who I'm a huge fan of. I've talked about him a lot, I think, in my videos. And he wrote this, which is a children's book. It's really, really good. And I feel like he really excelled in never dumbing down his style and never dumbing down for the audience that he's writing to. He writes just as well and just as interestingly and inventively as he does with novels he's writing for adults, he does with this book as well. The story is pretty interesting. It's about this kid who kind of moves to this weird town, and then he doesn't have any friends, and he kind of makes friends with this girl who is a lifter, and these lifters, they go underground and they put things under the ground to hold things up so they don't collapse, like the buildings and stuff, because of, I don't want to give a lot away, but if you have kids who like to read, I think that they would probably really enjoy this. If you have kids who feel kind of disenfranchised and lonely and stuff, this would be a great book for them as well. Kids who are dealing with maybe their parents splitting up and stuff, because it kind of has to do with that. But it's a really fun story as well, and it's really interesting and kind of a playful attempt to look at sadness and how it affects us and how we can deal with that and how to fix it to be happy, kind of thing. So I really enjoyed it, and I think that most people would probably enjoy it as well, adult or kid. All right, so as far as what I purchased in September, I kind of got a lot of books in September, more books than I normally do. I went on bookdepository.com, I believe is what it's called, and found some pretty cheap copies of some Cesar Arias books. So I'm trying to, my kind of goal as far as book buying is to get through all of Cesar Arias stuff, because I don't have all of them, and I would like all of them. I've read most of them. There are a few that I've read that I don't own, and I would like to. So I kind of started with the first one, which is the Hare. I believe this is the first one that was translated into English. I have not read it yet, so I'm going to get to that eventually. And just trying to find them sort of inexpensive. I don't mind these are like used library books, so I don't really mind that. I usually buy books to read and not just to have as pretty objects, so I'm okay with if they're a little damaged, if I can get them for a really good price. The other one I got was The Musical Brain, which is it's kind of funny to say, but it's a book of short stories. It's got this cool cover that I guess a collection of short stories, which is funny because he writes short novellas, so these are even shorter. So I'm excited to read that too. I do really enjoy short stories. I also got this, Harlot's Ghost by Norman Mailer. The only Norman Mailer I've read is The Executioner Song, and I really liked it. I saw this in a bookstore, and it said it was a CIA novel, which is interesting to me. Like the whole spy CIA thing is interesting to me, so I'm really interested to read this and see what it's about and if it's good. It looks like it's kind of long, but hopefully I'll read that soon. And then I went to a library bookstore in a nearby town with a friend, and it was pretty cool. So I got some books for pretty cheap, which is always awesome. A few of these were books where I was like, I'm not sure if I own a copy of this or not, so I'm going to get it again anyways, because they were $1 to $2. A Room with a View by Ian Forster, which I didn't end up having, but now I do. I think I have an ebook of it, but so now I can read this. I got To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. I've not read any Virginia Woolf, but I want to, and I feel like this is a good starting point, so we will see. Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. I'm trying to get as much Toni Morrison stuff in my life as I can. I just need to actually read it. And then I got this weird book about sailing techniques. I'm really into sailing. I haven't really ever done it, but I would like to learn and then, retire and just live on a boat or something. But this is just this weird technical book about sailing book. So yeah, that's pretty much my September in a book nutshell, a bookshell. So if you want to talk about any of these books, if you read any of these books and you have opinions about them, feel free to talk to me about them in the comments or on Twitter or wherever. And I hope you're having a good day. Thanks for watching.